not just the comparing the market and state, because sometimes, or in most of the cases, you will find that the market and state, they work together. So we will try to analyze the relative importance of the market and the state. And as I say, today we will discuss the market mechanism. We have seen the emergence of the market, particularly in the UK, during the Industrial Revolution, which is during the first half of the 19th century, where, or just after the Industrial Revolution, the market forces became so important that many liberals, or you can call them neoclassicalists, or those people who consider themselves as liberal economists, they pursued these market mechanisms. So, and it continued for a long period of time, and the market dominated in the economic thinking, the development thinking for a long time. Then came this the Keynesianism. So the Keynesianism is like more emphasis on the state or on the government policies, which was at the later part of the 19th century, and which all continued. The Keynesianism or the state intervention continued to dominate the economic thinking, I think, till 1960s, 1970s. Then there appear to be many problems in the developing countries, particularly the high inflation, then the balance of payment problem, then the business cycle, then the fiscal deficit, and so on. Then just after 1970s, then again the market forces became even more important. Okay, and then particularly in and then we have got this the oil prices as well. In early 1970s, we have got the oil prices. So because of these fiscal crisis, we don't call them financial crisis, because the fiscal crisis at that time. Because of this fiscal crisis and the failure of the Keynesian policies to address these problems, then we again relied, or we went back to the market again. Okay. So therefore, we have seen that throughout 1980s and the 1990s, particularly in the United States, led by President Reagan, and here by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, we found there is a huge amount of privatization and huge emphasis on the market forces was laid on by these political regime. So, of course, there are certain benefits here, certain benefits of the market, and the most important thing is that it's not just the failure of the state. It is also, in terms of the high inflation and the business cycle and the fiscal crisis, it is also observed that when the state or the planned economy, they control various aspects of the market, it was found that there is a huge amount of capital accumulation which the country did not need. So it is these unnecessary capital accumulation in certain sectors, and also the state was overextended. So the state did too many things at the same time, which the market could have performed better. Okay. So it is it's the overextended the state intervention, and also it is the significant amount of capital accumulation by the state was considered to be detrimental for the economic performance of these countries. Besides all the inefficiency of the state, corruption, blah, blah, all sorts of things, the common thing. Okay? So it's not just about the inefficiency and the corruption, it is also the overextended coverage of the state, too much planning and too much capital accumulation, and so on. Okay? So therefore, we found that the market became important, and at the same time, the globalization also took place at a faster rate, and also the WTO also was created by early 1990s. So the creation of the WTO, as well as the overall globalization, also created a huge pressure on the developing countries to address their problems.
Now, one of the main problems was, of course, the fiscal deficit. Okay, developing countries. I'm giving a little bit of history why the market has become very important in 1990s. And developing countries, they had this twin problem, which is they were suffering from high inflation. At the same time, they were suffering from fiscal deficit. Of course, they are interlinked, right? When you have got high fiscal deficit, you have inflation. So then they had to borrow money from external sources, mainly from international organizations like the IMF and the World Bank, plus other bilateral sources like DFID, USAID, and so on. So, but it was mostly from the multilateral sources like the IMF and the World Bank. Then they say that, well, you can borrow money at a concessional interest rate, but you have to do something because we can't help you for a long time. So then they impose certain conditionalities, and most of the conditionalities were towards moving towards the market forces. Okay? You reduce the size of the government, and then you allow the market to do the job, and then possibly we will help you out in terms of lending money. Then obviously, if you reduce the size of the government or the state, then your fiscal deficit will be lower. It's quite understandable. And also it may reduce or it may address certain degree of inflation, high inflationary pressure in the developing countries. But the ultimate aim was to get the loan, okay? Which is called the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, the Structural Adjustment Program in 1980s. So because of these conditionalities from the World Bank and the IMF, many countries, they had to reduce the size of the state, and they relied on the market forces. Okay? And then there was it's not just reducing the size of the state, it is, or the government, it is also to undertake various other reform measures. Let's say the trade openness, the trade reform, the domestic price reform, okay, or reduce the regulation from the market activities, and so on. So there are many other things taking place at the same time under the umbrella of the Structural Adjustment Program, and then there were other programs also implemented under the Washington Consensus, which we will discuss later. Okay? So that's the context. Okay? The historical sort of evolution or the time path of this the swing between market, state over time. Okay? Right. Now, so let us move on to the market. So, so the main idea or the idea behind this heavy rise of the market or the advocates of the market force is like the new liberal or the neoclassicalists. They say that the market is efficient. Yes, the market. We know the market is efficient because the price in the market you have got the price is determined by the demand and supply, and the price as a variable can contain huge amount of information. Okay? The price is not just a number. It also it gives you the information to the consumer, to the producer, and so on. Okay? So if there is a price, you as a consumer you always immediately link the price with your satisfaction. Okay? If you know the price is determined in the market, so you always think, okay, what is the marginal utility? How much satisfaction I'll get? So you get them. And for the producer, it's always the marginal cost. They can always relate the price with the marginal cost, and you can, after equating it, you know how much to produce and so on. So thereby, the price can have this significant role in bringing the efficiency in the market, and we know that the most efficient market is that one where the price is equal to the marginal cost, okay? Which is equal to the marginal utility as well. Okay. So then the price can perform this inexpensive informational role, okay, in organizing consumption, production, and the distribution. Okay, so that's why the market is important. Whereas if you rely on the state, then the state also can determine the price. On the one hand, that price might not be the right one, and if you change the price, it will affect your consumption, it will affect your production. Okay. Secondly, if you have got a price control by the state, then you will find the emergence of the black market, the emergence of the informal sector. And it was found that where the price is controlled or rationed by the state, And if there is a parallel economy going on, which is a market, obviously, because black market is also a market and it is efficient. Black market is efficient. If you have got the black market, or if you have got the informal sector emerging at the same time because of the price control by the state, then that informal market or the black market may dominate the state control market, state control sector as well. Okay? Because of the power, it has got more power. So therefore, it is better to leave something to the market if it can produce it, if the market can produce it more efficiently, okay, rather than allowing the government or the state to produce or to distribute or to sell the same product. Okay, so that's the idea, because it's very difficult to have certain industry or the certain product to be produced only by the state and nothing will happen in the market, formally or informally. Okay, so therefore it's better to have the one single price in a market mechanism. Okay? And also the other problem, we know that with the public ownership of the farms, here we are mostly talking about the manufacturing farm, okay? But it could be any other farm, it could be the service-oriented farm as well. So the public ownership will imply that the productivity will be lower, and there will be a disguised unemployment. But it's mainly because many developing countries, the government, the state, think that it is their responsibility to create the employment opportunity to the growing number of labor force. So the government thinks it is their responsibility. But in the developed countries, the state thinks that we will create the environment so that the market or the private sector will employ more workers. Whereas in the developing countries, the state thinks that it is their responsibility. Okay? Because the thing is that in the developing countries, you do not have the social welfare system. Okay? So in the absence of any social welfare system like unemployment benefit or job seekers allowance and so on, you think that you have to keep them employed because you don't provide unemployment benefit. But in this country, you encourage the private sector to employ more workers. If they can't, then you provide unemployment benefit or any other social measures. Okay? So therefore, we observe the disguised unemployment, and therefore the productivity will be lower. Okay, fine. And also sometimes these public sector, they fail to solve the social or economic problems for which they were made. Because initially, we thought that the market will not provide certain goods and services, and therefore the state will provide it because maybe those goods and services could be the necessities, and therefore the price of those goods should be controlled. Otherwise, if we leave it to the market, there could be a natural monopoly, which is the market-led monopoly or the private monopoly. That's why it is better to have a public monopoly rather than the private monopoly, and then we can serve the consumers or the citizens better. Okay, so that's what they do. Or that is their objective. That yes, we need to improve the welfare of the consumers because these are the basic necessities, whether it is the textile, clothing, or food distribution, or something like that. But then at the end, they fail. Why they fail? This social objective because the productivity is quite low, and with the low productivity, then what happens? Then you need to raise the price, okay? Because on the productivity side, or because of the disguised unemployment, so if to maintain these workforce there, you need to sell the output at a higher price. So they may fail to achieve the social objective as well as the economic objective, which is the productivity. So on the one hand, the productivity is low, efficiency is lower. On the other hand, after some period of time, when they can't subsidize it any further, they will not be able to fulfill their social objective. Then what they do? When they fail, they privatize it. Okay? But then it is too late because you do it after your failure. Okay? Rather than allowing the market to provide these goods from the very beginning. Okay? So ultimately they move to the market solution, but after their failure. Okay? To solve any social or economic objectives. Okay? So then we say that then the privatization comes into the picture, okay? Which is basically you rely on the market forces.